when you leave your class today, you might want to go visit the different tables and things that are set up in the commons outside. And I think it's 11 to 2. So if you don't have class right away, you should be able to go. They usually have food too. I don't know if it's free or not. It used to be free, but I'm not sure it might cost you a bit more to charge. Yes?
It's $1 when you bring in a canned good.
Okay. And if you don't bring a canned good?
$1.
Oh, it's $1 if you don't bring a canned good. Okay, good. Thank you for saying that. So I encourage you to stop by, and they have all kinds of goodies that they usually give you that you can walk away with. So please do that. And usually they have drinks too, sodas and water, of course, for you. So check it out. Thank you to all the people who organized that. All right, we are, of course, in the human anatomy physiology section. And which we have been for a while, about a few days anyway. Let me explain to you, there's a lot of material, and for this fourth test, but I'm hoping that it comes to you a little more easily, because you should have a motivation to really want to know it, because it's about your body. And all the knowledge you can get about your body, structure and function, will help you to understand your overall health, the possibility of having dis-ease, which if you dissect that word, disease is dis-ease. Your body is not in ease or homeostatic balance. There's something out of place. So I always kind of think of this, and even though I'm not going to spend a lot of time mentioning certain diseases and disorders, I mean, you could spend a whole course on diseases and disorders. And if some of you are truly going into medicine or whatever, you have plenty of time to do more of that. But just think about if you have something built a certain way. For instance, let's just start with this. If you have a respiratory condition, may be initially caused directly by an allergy. Now, this is really immune system. The people who are prone to it, what can happen is if you get a bug or something that sort of started and made you susceptible by this, the allergies, the spring allergies we've got with all the flowering pollen that's going on out there. And we're breathing it in, and our respiratory tract may be overly sensitive. And actually, an allergy is being oversensitive to the presence of foreign substances coming into your body. And so it's sort of overworked. If when we talk about, let's just do it very generally, we have right here this cartilage tube that goes down, you have rings. This is your trachea, and this is from the back of your throat, which is called the pharynx, which really two systems enter into it, the respiratory and the digestive. But from there, the air is diverted into this front tube called the trachea. The food goes into the more posterior tube, which is called the esophagus. And there's a little flap at the top called the epiglottis, because the opening to the respiratory system is the glottis. So epi's on top. So there's like a little flap that's every time we eat, that's supposed to close over the glottis opening of the trachea so you don't choke. So food doesn't go down this tube. But let's say this air comes in here, you've got all these mucous membranes up here, you've got the sinuses up here, and they get inflamed. And you get some sort of bug, whether it be virus, it be a bacteria that sort of sets up housekeeping because you've been irritated by this allergen. So if it gets to travel down the trachea, although there are cilia there trying to sweep stuff back up, another homeostatic mechanism, and mucus, if it gets down to the tubes, you have two tubes at the base of the trachea that split. one goes to the right lung, and then one goes to the left lung. And those are called bronchi. Okay, and if you go away from the actual hay fever stuff, and I just say some of you may have constant issues with your bronchial tubes that they constrict. Well, if the bronchial tubes are not open like they're supposed to be and they get smaller around, is it going to be harder for you to breathe? And some of you have a more chronic condition where that can occur. And what is that called? Asthma. Thank you. But you can also get an inflammation of the bronchial tubes, which is more acute, which means it's a condition that's happening right now. It's an infection, inflammation, and that's called bronchitis. Okay, so kind of think these things through. When you learn these things, kind of think also, what could happen if something goes wrong with this? Just due to the way it's built and its function. Now, let me explain an orientation a little bit. This, for some of you, you will say, oh yes, I've been wanting something like this. And for others, it's like, oh my God. Sorry, oh my gosh. Anyway, the background of this is what I use for one of my other classes that I teach, that about a fourth of the class is human anatomy and physiology. Probably a week to week and a half to 2 weeks, I teach longer than what I teach this with you. So I'm giving this to you, but telling you that we're not necessarily going to expect you to know it all. And what I'm going to try to do as we go through is to have you with pen and have this out, and we will X out certain things.
So we don't need to know every nook and cranny of this for the exam.
No, but it certainly sets a maximum expectation. And then we're going to try to tell you during these presentations what we're passing over.
Which class is that?
This is 1051.
Okay.
It's a pre-allied health course. So I thought if they can be of any use. Okay, let's do this first before we start. In general, it says for each organ system, and that's what we're doing now, is going through each system. Identify and label all the major organs and accessory glands associated with each system and determine the functions of each system and its parts. Now that's a pretty general objective, and that's very applicable. And then identify special terminology that's associated with each system. And recognize homeostatic and functional relationships, how to keep it balanced, between the various systems in order to promote the well-being of human. So at least always be thinking of those three general for each system that we talk about. Now, chapter 40 is really the introduction part. Look through those. How many of those, can you do all those because of what we went over? I think that's probably going to be, except for number 11, we need to do a little bit more with that. Are we good with, well, 9's a little, integumentary system is the skin and the outer body covering. We're not going to really go much over the skin except to tell you that the upper layer of the skin is epidermis, epi on top, and dermis is below. And it's got all the sensory stuff in it, but I'm not going to require that you know all of that for this class. Future classes, we'll probably learn more about that. Can you do all the, I mean, we've discussed all of the rest of that in the first one, haven't we? The introduction, which might also be a good study guide for the quiz. Okay, number 11. We know dorsal ventral, anterior, and posterior, right? Particularly in animals. And then we're just weird because we walk upright. But dorsal surface of a four-legged critter is the surface that faces upward towards the sky. The ventral surface is the belly that faces downward. The anterior end is the end that normally meets the environment first, and the posterior is the one that normally meets it last.
The majority of animals are not bipedal, right?
Right. They're tetrapedal with, that's right. So now we can say this is anterior. This is really ventral, but it's also, it's anterior. Some people prefer the anterior posterior. So we're weird because we walk upright. Proximate and distal. Before we start today's discussion, it's important that we get to the proximal, distal, and also inferior and superior. If I could say this is my arm, where would be proximal and distal are sort of in relationship to the central part of the body or the middle part of the body. So would this be my proximal area or my or which is proximal and distal? What do you think is the most distance away? Okay, so this part would be distal to my arm, and this is more proximal, approximately located near the center or the main part of the item that you're referring to. Now, if you talk about your phalanges, which are your finger bones, the thumb has 2, and the rest of them have 3. And so you have your proximal phalange, your middle phalange, and your distal phalange. So know those as positional terms. And then today when we talk about the circulatory system, the big vein that comes down here to the heart is superior. It's above the heart. If you have a superior grade, you're above, right? And if you don't have such a superior grade and it's way down, then inferior means below. Okay, so the big veins coming back up here towards the heart are inferior veins, and these are superior veins relative to an organ, which in this case, we're talking about the heart position, which really is more like right there. So we good on those terms? Bilateral, that's a way that your body plan is, so that you have 2 approximately equal halves. They're not totally equal, but approximately equal halves. Right side, left side, bilateral. Okay, nutrition and digestive system. Okay, number 1, identify the name for the entire food tube. In other words, from the mouth all the way to the anus.
Esophagus.
Okay, let's know. You got the mouth, and then the back of your throat is called the pharynx or pharynx. Then,
Esophagus.
which is dorsal to the trachea, and then it leads down to the stomach, and then it continues to the small intestine, which the whole middle part of your lower abdomen, small intestine, and then it hooks up right here with the large intestine, and then it comes up this way, it goes across this way, and down this way, and that's the large intestine, also called the colon. Okay, somebody has a colonoscopy, you go have a test where they actually take a camera and go up with the hose and throughout your whole colon. You may think it sounds terrible, but you don't remember a thing because they give you a twilight sedation. And I've had it done many times. I survived. And they can look around and see if you have any polyps or you have anything that could be malignant or potentially malignant. All kinds of tests. Okay, so alimentary canal. So everybody got that? The whole food tube is called the alimentary canal. So you get your large intestine, then there's a rectum, and then there's an anus. So the whole food tube is going to be the alimentary, A-L-I-M-E-N-T-A-R-Y canal. List of monomers or break down proteins of digestion of carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. We're going to go over that a little bit, name the 3 parts of the small intestine. name the organic molecule that is partially digested in the stomach. Okay, let's jump down to number 8. How many amino acids are there? Oh, okay, I
We said
usually say
different
20. Some people do say 22. I usually just say 20. And how many of those are essential that you have to have in your diet?
All of them?
No, we can actually transform some to others. How many?
7.
Well, I was gonna say 8, but there may be, actually that's 8 essential fatty acids, right? Don't forget about the last part. I mean, do forget about the last part. That's fine. Know that there are 20 amino acids. Can we do number 9 now that we've already talked? What are they? What?
ADEK.
ADEK, ADEK, or fat soluble. Water soluble are B's and C's. I might mention too that the D's can be made in your body by sunshine, stimulating vitamin D to be made. So, in fact, it's become the new vitamin of emphasis. Yeah, okay. Here, you want to sign in and also pick up one of these papers. And the main minerals needed in the body, we talked about differentiate between vitamins and minerals. I think you could do that now. Okay, I'm probably going to want you to know most of the nutrition digestive system objectives. So let's get started. If you copy off all of the forms originally, you might have a packet of illustrations that I put in the original, and then this morning I went ahead and gave you some lecture. What I'm deciding to do, lights. That's better. So these are online, and I put in a separate category, lecture outlines. The human digestive system, and I've written down below the whole food tube. So this is the digestive system and nutrition, but focus on digestive system. Okay, so here we did. In the mouth, the oral cavity, we have the pharynx. That uvula is the little thing that hanging down in the back. Everybody know what the uvula is? When I go to my sleep doctor, he always looks at my mouth and he says, "Oh, your uvula looks fine. You must be using your machine." Okay, because I have sleep apnea and I have a CPAP machine. It's gorgeous, but what can I say? If you don't use those and you need those, this is just, if you know somebody who snores a lot and really has sleeping issues, you might want to have it checked out, because if you don't correct it, it can lead to heart problems. In fact, the right side of my heart is, as they say, more generous than it should be in size, which they think is probably because before I treated my sleep apnea. So the tongue, of course, helps to capture the food and to throw it up so that you can do the mechanical digestion of breaking whatever you're eating up. You really should be chewing for, ideally, each bite should be chewed for about 10 to 15 seconds to allow time for the saliva and other things to attack it. And you've got 3 salivary sets of salivary glands, the parotids, which get involved in mumps, chipmunk cheeks, submandibular, which is under the mandible, which is the lower jaw, sublingual, which is under the tongue. Linguistics is speaking, so tongue is important. There's that epiglottis area, it's not showing it real well, that actually goes over, and this is part of the trachea, but they just showed that small part to tell you the epiglottis blocks the food from going out there. So the food comes down here, Peristalsis is the wave-like movements of the smooth muscle pushing the bolus of food ahead, even though gravity is helping in this case. And it goes down here to a valve. And a valve is like a flap that opens and closes. And people who have gastric reflux and hiatal hernias, things of that sort, this valve doesn't close completely right, and you have backup of acid from the stomach into the esophagus. And, so remember, you got to look at this as though it's in you. So it's the left side. The stomach is on the left side. And in between here, do you see this green area? The color's not showing up a lot. Okay, so it would be this green area right here. This is the pancreas. Pancreas is sort of sometimes behind the stomach, but also in that loop between the stomach and where the small intestine is. That is not a part of the alimentary canal, but it is an accessory gland to not only digestive, but to endocrine system. And so there's a claim to fame for the pharynx we talked about. It has two systems. The pancreas is a part of two systems. It has the digestive function and it has the hormone functions of producing insulin and glucagon for sugar metabolism. Okay, so then there's a pyloric valve. You might want to catch that. The valve is the bottom of the stomach, which opens and closes and squirts chyme, which is a mixture. The stomach has three sets of muscles. It churns food up, and it exposes it to pepsin. Even though as a child we've always been told our stomach is where digestion takes place. Well, the funny thing about this is that there's only one type of organic molecule food that is really physically attacked and chemically attacked in the stomach. And which one is that?
Protein.
Proteins. They're partially digested in the stomach. And in order to have proteins, which are made of amino acids, to have those broken apart, it has to be a low pH. So, which is a very strong pH. A pH of about 1.5-ish. Okay, there are buffers, but, and in order to get partially digested protein in the stomach, and if you notice the objectives, I think we probably answered several of those objectives. Yes?
What's that valve called again?
Pyloric, P-Y-L-O-R-I-C. Pyloric, think of pies like sweet pies. Pyloric valves. Okay, so then, the other accessory gland, the other main accessory gland of the digestive system is the liver. And we really can't live without liver. There are a lot of things you can't live without, but you just listen to the word liver. It's this big, brown, it's really massiveness. It's the largest organ of the body, inside the body. The skin would be the largest outside. So right here begins the small intestine. Yes?
It's the other accessory gland of versus the part where
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
said the other accessory gland was the first one, the pancreas, or the pylori.
No, the pyloric is a valve. So it's a structure. First accessory gland is the pancreas. And then the second accessory gland, the digestive system, is the liver. And the liver secretes a substance called bile, B-I-L-E, which is sort of greenish brown. And it is concentrated, this little green pea, it doesn't appear green here, but under the right lobe of the liver, if you lift up, you would see the gallbladder. The gallbladder stores and concentrates bile, and it affects the breakdown of fats, lipids. It emulsifies, which means it breaks them into little globules so that they'll be easier to attack by the lipases, which are enzymes that specifically attack any type of lipids and break them down to their two main parts, which would be glycerols and fatty acids. You learned that part from last semester, right? In terms of fats, lipids, fatty acids, and glycerol.
I thought bile was produced in the pancreas.
Yeah. Bile is produced in the liver. Insulin and glucagon are hormones produced in the pancreas. And there are other substances produced in there that I haven't talked about, but bile is not produced in the pancreas. So I'm glad we cleared that up. Okay, so the small intestine, look at here. What are the three parts of the small intestine in order from the nearest to stomach? The duodenum or duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum. These are the three parts of the small intestine. The duodenum, I would for sure remember because it is a very, very major part of the small intestine. This is where, if I asked you specifically to name a specific part of the digestive system where the most digestion takes place, and digestion is the breakdown from the large organic molecules into its monomers, you're going to say, well, if it asks for general, you would say small intestine, but if it asks more specific, you would say duodenum. That first 12 inches or so, exactly, centimeters, sorry, but is the duodenum, which is where most digestion takes place. Because there are enzymes coming from the pancreas, there are also enzymes in the small intestine that are going to be put in there to break down the food products. Okay, so the duodenum is particularly the most notable, and after that is the jejunum and the ileum. So all of this is the small intestine, not because it's the smallest in length, but because it's the smallest in diameter. And it's all right in the middle. Okay, over here on the right side, now put this in you. So as you look into this will be the right side. Over here on the right side is where the ileum hooks in to the large intestine, larger around. And the large intestine is broken up into three main areas. Let's start with the ascending colon, which is this one. It goes up, so it ascends the steps, so to speak. And transverse would be transversing across. And then this is descending, going down. And then there's like a little S sigmoid, but that's okay. And then here we have the first part of the holding chamber called the rectum, and then the anus. And of course, there are sphincters, which are sort of like valves, all over your body. And of course, the anal sphincter is one. Urinary bladder, for the bladder, urinary sphincter, unfortunately, sometimes those get loose, and that's when you get into conditions of certain degrees of incontinence, which means you have accidents, whether it be from the excretory system of the bladder or from the digestive system. By the way, this is an old spelling, more European spelling with the O in front of it. Let's just call this food tube that leads the food from the mouth to the stomach as just esophagus. So the food tube would be where food makes contact in a continuous series of tubes. And then the accessory glands would be the pancreas and the liver. And then there are ducts that lead this bile down to the small intestine. There are pancreatic ducts that also go down to the small intestine. People can get gallstones, and they may have to have gallbladder removed. I've been there, done that.
Then where does the bile go?
The bile dumps directly from the liver. They still hook up the tube so that the bile just, instead of having a tube a duct. A duct is a tube or a pipe, a DUCT. It goes directly into the small intestine from the liver. There isn't a place to store it and concentrate it. That's why some people can have issues if you eat a real fatty meal, and the chemistry in your body registers to your brain that you just had a high fatty meal, and then your liver just starts dumping bile, and so it can make it a little out of sync in terms of getting too much. But lots of people live without a gallbladder. There's a medication I'm on now that does help with that. When I eat something more fatty, I try to take that pill. It helps to slow it down a little bit. Okay, for this one, the different parts, this mouth salivary amylase, and what happens up here is that the salivary amylase affects, make that bigger. Yes. Is that big enough? The amylase attacks starch. So starchy foods, eat a cracker, and if you chew it long enough, like I said, I have a friend who does this, that actually eats the way you're supposed to eat. She's amazing to me. I don't know how she does that. But she will chew her food 15 seconds, and she will put her fork in. And then she'll talk a while. And then she'll pick up her fork again. She'll put another bite in, and she'll chew for another 15 seconds. And obviously there are other variables to this, but she's as skinny as can be. She's almost my height, and her legs are 36 inches long. And she wears somewhere between a size 0 and 2, and she's about my age. So she's pretty sickening. But she does eat that way. But like I said, there are other variables too. So it breaks down starches into maltose, particularly, which is a disaccharide. So it's maltose. In the stomach, we said breaks down proteins into large peptides, which means it's a few amino acids hooked together by peptide bonds. Remember peptide bonds? Small intestine, amylase continues to break down the starch, continues to break down the protein, and lipase continues. So you've got your three main food groups here: starch, carbohydrates, so these are carbs, proteins, and fats. So you have a backup system if you don't chew it. Enough up here, I guess. And in the small intestine, you have maltase, which attacks maltose, sucrase, which attacks sucrose, and lactase, which also breaks down milk sugar. For those of us who can produce lactase, because the genes for lactase tend to shut off as one ages, and some people are born lactose intolerant. So it kind of depends on what area of the world you're from, too. The hypothesis is that we were born, of course, having lipase to be able to break down like breast milk and the milk that we're fed when we're younger, and then milk is not so necessarily needed later on in life. Small intestine, so you've got all these different things, and peptidase is breaking down further dipeptides into amino acids. So I'm going to jump to this one at the bottom. Okay, definitely know the breakdown products. Whoa, not that far. Sorry, you can always tell a horse person. You always say, whoa. All right. Right. Okay, so starches, or let's just say carbs, carbohydrates. And this is a polysaccharide. Amylases and other types of enzymes break down into simple monosaccharide sugars like glucose. So like glucose. Fat globules, biosalts break them apart into droplets. Fat droplets are then attacked by lipases, those are lipids, and into fatty acids and glycerol. So those are the two main parts of a lipid. Proteins. Remember, they have up to quaternary structure. They have the amino acid sequencing structure called the primary structure. They fold a little bit, that's a secondary structure. They further fold tertiary structure, which determines their shape and their function. And then some have more than one polypeptide associated as a quaternary structure, like hemoglobin. And so here's the HCl, there's acid in the stomach, HCl, unfolds large proteins. And then you have the primary structure here, and then proteases. Who would have guessed? Proteases break down proteins. That's really hard, isn't it? Don't forget to look for the simple clues. And produce amino acids. So always know that these are the polymers that break down into the amino acid, into the monomers. So these are monomers of these three. Now there's a fourth group, is there not? Which fourth group? Nucleic acids, which is hardly ever talked about in digestive system because you don't think of that as speaking food. I just have this. Oh, it's right above it. I'm sorry. Nucleic acid digestion of nucleases. There are enzymes found in the nucleus that break down nucleic acids, the DNA and the RNA. You don't have to get much more specific than that. It says the pancreas actually produces some of these, and the small intestine also produces some enzymes. So between the pancreas and the small intestine, you get those broken down into simple nucleotides. Okay, nucleotides. So carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. Again, look at your word choice. That helps a lot with that. Okay. There are with some of the human digestive enzymes, there are pH differences that are preferred. The mouth, about 7.8 for amylase to occur. In the stomach, for protein digestion, they say 2, but it's about 1.5 to 2. And then for lipase, pancreatic lipase, it goes back to 7.2 to 7.5, with 7 being neutral. And blood pH is buffered to what?
5, 6.
7.4. And we have buffers that help to keep that within a small range. Bicarbonate to add more base to it, carbonic acid to add more hydrogens for acids.
So I'm guessing it wouldn't help contribute to help your stomach have digestive benefits by downing a cup of sulfuric acid.
Oh, gee, well, sulfuric acid by itself would probably lead to extreme toxicity and kill you. And no, you would not want to do that. In fact, what most of us do is take bicarbonates or something that's a proton pump inhibitor, which can have side effects.
So like water with a pH higher, like this one water has a pH of 9, that would not raise your pH, but because when it goes through your digestive, it would affect you wouldn't get the benefits of a high pH.
Water is supposed to be around 7, although in the lab it tested weird. And Nick's got his hypothesis for that. But so water's around 7, but no, it's 7's fine. It doesn't hurt the stomach at all. Because
Talking about alkaline water that has
Oh.
purposely higher.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that point. Okay, alkaline water. Yeah, would not.
Doesn't like the pancreas pump like hydrogen protons into like the stomach like water making pH?
They do.
The reason why I ask is because I have a doctor that I work with, and he swears by drinking this water that it'll kill all the cancer cells and you won't get cancer.
Yeah,
But I think that once it hits your digestion, that's gonna lower the pH and you're not gonna get the benefit out of it.
I guess, yeah, and I guess it comes to the fact of where is water most absorbed? And that would need to be explored, you know, which part of the digestive system is that most absorbed in the body?
Well, I was just telling her, your immune system in and of itself destroys cancer cells regardless. The reason you
Well,
get it
if
is
there's
if
just a
it's
few, yeah,
depressed,
depressed,
as in suppressed, like immunodeficiency
right, that's one of the reasons, yes.
of some
Uh,
sort.
Yeah, that's
Not
one of
necessarily.
those, that's one of those hypotheses that some specialists and doctors and also people who do that research have had issues. I am not going to tell you it doesn't work. I can't tell you it does. And I don't know if it's good demonstrations tested. So one of the things I'm not going to test it, but I don't know if we can do any damage. I think we can answer the touchdown and see what kind of clinical research you can come up with, pros and cons come out of these. This is a lot that's the same, you know, so that's certainly not going to get it out. But I would want to search the biology of it and see what makes it can survive that pH in the stomach. And after totally with some research, which seems like one of the biggest the digestive system, it's not that nine. This is probably very acidic. But then what happens in small intestine, the pancreas does provide a buffer that once the stuff comes out of the comes out of the stomach, there is an automatic buffer to make it more alkaline. So the body kind of
But buffers
does
have
what's
their
supposed to.
limitations.
It's what?
Buffers have their limitations.
Yes, you can't, like you said, you can't swallow sulfuric acid and expect your buffer system to work. It's still gonna probably kill you.
You die.
Yeah, because it works within, I think I read, 7.4 is the ideal pH of blood. And anywhere, I think, between like 3/10 either way is probably gonna kill you. If your whole blood pH changes either way, about 3/10 or so of a pH level.
And is that what can happen in cases of sepsis?
Get what?
Is that what happens in cases of sepsis?
Well, sepsis is an actual bacterial infection that has gotten into the blood. So you're talking about a whole different thing. You're talking about an actual pathogen. Like if somebody has strep and it's going from the throat and it's invaded kidneys or liver or all your major organs, and you have blood poisoning. And that's what sepsis is. And that's very hard to treat. People live through it if they get in the hospital immediately and they get down with all kinds of antibiotics. But
My great uncle's one of those people that supposedly lived through sepsis about a year or two ago.
yeah, it's very lucky. And
He was, because we thought he was on his way
yeah,
out.
it's not a good thing at all. But they sometimes can override it. There's a new, have you been reading, there's a new strain of bacteria that's out there. No, I'm sorry, fungus. It is Candida. Candida albicans is a yeast, unicellular fungi, that causes most vaginal yeast infections. And we have Candida albicans in our intestines. Anyway, all of us have some. It's just that when we kill off with antibiotics large amounts of good bacteria, along with the bad, but kills good ones too, then you leave space for this Candida to very vigorously reproduce. And they reproduce. Now there's a new Candida, and I forget the species name, but it's the genus Candida that is now becoming untreatable. And people are getting this infection. And if you do an internet search for Candida spreading, a new strain spreading, and you read about it, it's really kind of scary as to what's going to happen. Okay, I want to jump to the circulatory system for a little bit. I want to introduce it to you. Circulate some new ideas for a few minutes. Funny, huh? Watch out for those puns. Okay. Circulatory system. Blood vessels. Blood. Heart. Circulatory system consists of those three main parts. Blood vessels, being veins, capillaries, arteries. We're going to introduce to you too that there are smaller veins called venules and smaller arteries called arterioles. Capillaries are the main working parts. Food, digested food, gases, plus other. Red blood cells are very tiny, and capillaries are so small that they go through single file. What is made up of, what all's in blood? Obviously, in this particular drawing, I pick drawings, but then I always know that that needs alteration. Plasma, which is the fluid part of the blood. And then the three main solid portions of the blood are platelets, which are for clotting of the blood, and they're partial cells. Leukocytes are the white blood cells. Leuko means white. And erythrocytes, these are the RBCs, the red blood cells. So I would know the difference between a leukocyte and an erythrocyte in terms of being a white blood cell. And then some of these white blood cells actually become lymphocytes, and some are just like normal white blood cells. So this would be more with the lymphatic system. The erythrocytes carry the oxygen because they have hemoglobin on their red blood cells. And also there's an iron molecule in the middle of it. The heart, we're going to spend quite a bit of time, four-chamber heart. Which side, aortic arch? For mammals? Left. Aortic arch. This is kind of out of order, but I also want you to know that the respiratory system works with the circulatory system because you have to get the gases in and out. And breathing or ventilation, inhalation and exhalation, help to get the gases to the lungs, which the circulatory system is going to come around and pick up and take away the used blood, the used gases, blow the used gases out. Like we'll have CO2 coming out and exhalation, and we'll have the oxygen coming in. Okay, now, blood flow to the human circulatory system. Okay, this would be more the head area. Do you remember I told you about superior and inferior? Look at this. Superior vena cava, inferior vena cava. Here is the level of the heart. So usually veins are indicated on models and in pictures with blue. Usually. Okay. And then arteries are usually indicated as red. However, I want you to also notice that there are pulmonary arteries and there are pulmonary veins, which means these are arteries and veins that have to do with the heart, that come either from the heart or go to the heart from the lungs. Anything pulmonary has to do with lungs. Anything coronary, like you see all these arteries and veins on the surface of the heart that feeds the heart muscle. These are coronary arteries and veins of the heart. Yes. Oh, I'm so sorry. Absolutely. So in talking about blood vessels, is it okay if I raise it up now? Yes.
Why are the veins blue if why are the arteries blue in the lungs and the veins blue? I mean, the veins red in the lungs when it's different.
Brittany, I am really, really excited that you asked that.
Is that like where the exchange happens?
It's different. It's different in the pulmonary system from all the rest of the body. That was a great observation. We've got pulmonary arteries up here and they're blue. Remember what I told you? I said in most cases? And we've got pulmonary veins over here, which are in red. You can see it. You can't really see it that way. Okay, let's go to the bottom. We're going to clear this up. This is the usual pathway of blood vessels. Arteries lead away from the heart. They break down into smaller arteries called arterioles. And then the capillaries, we told you, the main working parts where diffusion of materials move back and forth with the cells. Then the other end, little veins called venules pick up, and then the veins bring back to the heart. Now, the true definition of an artery is a blood vessel that carries blood away from the heart. Then I say usually high in oxygen and low in carbon dioxide, but the pulmonary system is different. It switches. The veins come toward the heart. They're usually very high in CO2 because they're bringing the used blood back from the cells, and cellular respiration has taken place, and CO2 has been given off. However, the pulmonary system is different. Capillaries are main working parts. If you talk about these three main systems of blood flow, the systemic system goes to the whole body of all the systems. Coronary system goes to the heart, and pulmonary system goes to the lungs. Okay. We are going to have to continue this discussion. I'm going to stop here, but why this is the way it is, we'll have to explain a little bit later. Okay, so we have a quiz on Friday. Everything up here. And if we talked about it and it's listed on the objectives, I would know it. If we didn't talk about it and it's listed on the objectives, I wouldn't worry about it. So we're going to go straight away.